You tip a flight attendant?
I tip everybody. That's my philosophy. Actually, it's not tipping I believe in. It's over-tipping.
See, I think this is the kind of thing people would like to know.
So you're headed to Vegas. Vegas is a destination unlike any other.
And along with that comes some guidelines that are unlike anything you'll find any other place.
Vegas is more than any other place a service-oriented town.
And along with great service come gratuities. Lots of them.
But who do you need a tip, and exactly how much?
That's the topic of this, episode 4 of Vegas Things.
In this video, we break down the ins and outs of tipping in Las Vegas.
To tip or not to tip?
The pressure to tip has reached a tipping point.
When the cashier flips the iPad over, you stare at it. You know you've been there. This happens all the time.
Now, we recognize that the act of tipping is a sensitive topic and it elicits strong emotions on both sides of the equation and from different cultures around the world.
I don't tip.
You don't tip?
No, I don't believe in it.
I always tip at least 60 because I care whether or not our waitress starves to death.
But please do recognize that gratuities are an integral part of most customer-facing employees' pay. Now, I know we all tend to experience tipping fatigue, especially when we're on vacation, because let's face it, sometimes a trip to Las Vegas kind of feels like...
There you go. Thank you, sir. There you go. Thank you, sir. There you go.
Tipping culture in the United States kind of is what it is, and that's not what this video is about. This video rather highlights the most common tips you might come across while you're in Las Vegas. As we go through the list, it sounds like a lot, but really it's just a few bucks here and there, and that's why I find it's always good to keep a lot of ones and smaller bills in your pocket just to cover your bases when you're out and about.
Jonathan Albertson, pleasure to meet you.
So the first person you're probably going to come in contact with is going to be your driver who is taking you to and from the airport. So let's take a look at how much you might want to tip your driver.
Now, maybe you have your own car when you're in Vegas and don't need airport transportation, but these guidelines apply anytime you take a cab, rideshare, or limo. For a cab, Uber, or Lyft, a general guideline for a tip ranges from 10 to 20%, but remember, this is at your discretion. Your tip very much can and should depend on the quality of your ride. That goes from the cleanliness of the car to the friendliness of the driver. So if our driver keeps a clean car and makes friendly conversation, what's normally a $3 to $5 tip could become $10 or more. Likewise, if our cab driver breaks a wheel off our brand new suitcase and doesn't even apologize, or if our Uber driver goes on a scary, unprompted tirade that involves calling the First Lady of Nevada the C word, and yes, both of those things have happened on our rides in Vegas before, the driver's tip is going to be, you guessed it, $0. Now, if you decided to live large in Vegas and go with something a little bit bigger, like say a limousine or a party bus, the level of service you receive is bound to be higher, and in which case your tip is going to be higher. Limo drivers provide a higher quality of service, including meeting you at baggage claim, assisting you with your bags, offering to take you to stops along the way, and just delivering an overall great experience. That's why we always tip a limo driver at least 20% of the cost of the ride, if not more. If you have your own car and never need to pay for a ride, you still might be faced with the possibility of paying for valet parking. Valet parking is offered at nearly every resort in Las Vegas, and regardless of whether or not you qualify to get it free, you still need to tip your valet parker. This could be as little as $2 to $3 each time, but for us, it's $5 when we drop off and $5 when we pick up.
So right when you arrive to your hotel, there's probably going to be a few employees you might want to have your money ready for. And it begins right when you get out of your car.
As soon as you step out of your car at a Las Vegas hotel valet, you're going to be greeted immediately by a bell desk employee. Now, you may not use them at all, but if it's not yet check-in time, you might just want to have them store your bags and bring them to the room later. A good rule of thumb here is usually $2 to $3 per bag, but remember, the person who takes your bag at the curb and the person who brings the bag to your room later is likely to be different. Our usual tip is $2 to $3 at drop-off and $5 to the person who delivers the bags to the room.
So at the front desk, a tip is never completely necessary, but there are times where a tip may just help you get an upgrade. That's known as a $20 trick, and it was actually on episode 2 of this series. So be sure to check that out. There's a link in the description below.
We don't always tip the front desk agent, especially if we're not angling for an upgrade, but if they were friendly and went out of their way to help you, maybe gave you a higher floor or a room close to the elevators like you requested, a few bucks is always appreciated and definitely makes the day better for someone who has to deal with hundreds of guests in a day.
The other most common hotel employee that you need to consider tipping is going to be your housekeeper. We always tip our housekeeper, and there's more than one way to do it.
Housekeepers are some of the most overworked and underappreciated hotel employees. And if you're like us, you normally keep your Vegas room in a mess. That's why we always tip our housekeeper. A good rule of thumb here is $2 to $3 per person per day. For us, on a typical 3-night stay in Las Vegas, we generally leave about $20 for the housekeeper. Some people choose to tip daily to the housekeeper because the housekeeper can change throughout their stay. If you do that, be sure and leave a note and let them know very specifically that that tip is for them. Or if you want to make it easier, just do what we do and leave a $20 bill on the dresser when you check out.
So now you're on the casino floor and you want a drink. Drinks are free in Vegas, right? Well, yes, but if you're gonna want more than one cocktail, and let's be honest, we all do, you're gonna wanna have some ones ready. So cocktail servers work mostly on tips, and being generous to them almost always means them being generous to you.
Most commonly, people tip about $1 per drink on the casino floor. If we're gambling together, generally I'll give $3 for the 2 of our drinks. But if you know you're going to be gambling in a certain area for a while and want multiple drinks, tip $5 on the first, and I guarantee that waitress will remember your section.
But cocktail servers aren't the only ones working for tips on the casino floor. There's one group of people that often get overlooked for tips, especially when you're losing money. I'm talking about table games dealers.
Table games dealers rely heavily on tips, and this is one that often gets overlooked. There really is no set guideline for this. However, if the dealer is friendly and the table atmosphere is good, I will tip occasionally after winning hands if I'm winning money or maybe even breaking even. You can either tip directly to the dealer, or you can ask the dealer if they'd rather you play for them. In my experience, blackjack dealers prefer that because if you win, they win, and everybody's happy.
So finally, someone else you may tip on the casino floor, and this is kind of hearsay, since in more than 10 years of going to Vegas, we've actually never had a personal experience with this one, is a slot attendant on a hand pay.
I know this one sounds a little ridiculous because after all, the casino doesn't tip us when we lose our money there, so why should we give some back when we finally win? However, it is common practice to tip a slot attendant on a hand pay. Don't feel like you need to give a specific percentage of your jackpot, just anything that thanks the slot attendant for their time.
So in the US, tipping for service in a restaurant is really not up for much debate. Most of you watching this video already know how that works and why it works that way. But if you're coming from a culture that doesn't typically tip, there are some really good things to know.
Restaurant servers in the US in many cases make less than minimum wage and rely on your tips for the bulk of their income. While it's of course still optional, it is customary in the US to tip between 15 and 20% of the cost of your food and beverage. In the case of extenuating circumstances, it might be acceptable to tip less, but in no case is it really culturally acceptable to not tip at all. Tips on food and beverage work the same if you're ordering a meal at a restaurant, a drink at a bar or lounge, or even food or drink at the poolside. Keep in mind I'm talking about sit-down service. In those instances where you're at a counter service restaurant and the terminal asks you if you want to leave a tip, in my opinion a tip is nice but not absolutely necessary, and definitely not 15 to 20% as you would at a sit-down restaurant.
So those are the most common people that you'll have to tip while on vacation in Las Vegas.
No, that probably doesn't cover everyone, but it would be nearly impossible to cover every single person you might come in contact with that you're going to tip, but that pretty well covers the basics.
So if you like this video, please be sure to give it a thumbs up and be sure to check out our other content.
Also, please do subscribe to the channel. It's absolutely free, and turn on that notification bell so you don't miss any videos when they drop in the future. Hey, that's it for this one, guys. Thanks for watching. We'll see you in the next one because there's always more for us to show you
On Show Me Vegas. Bye, guys.